Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation window. His breath made small clouds on the surface as he watched the strangest thing he had ever seen. The massive shape floating in space looked nothing like a warship. It looked like someone had taken a junkyard and decided to make it fly. The USS Wildcard was finally ready. After 2 years of secret construction, the most unusual military vessel in human history was about to leave the shipyard. Jake could not believe his eyes. Where other warships had smooth metal sides and scary weapon points, this ship looked like a giant puzzle made from old car parts, camping gear, and playground equipment. Pretty weird, right? Admiral Lisa Grant walked up beside him. Her uniform was perfect as always, but her face showed worry. The aliens are already making jokes about it. The Zephyrians are laughing so hard, they are spitting their blue slime everywhere. Jake nodded, but kept staring at the ship. The most strange part was not the mismatched pieces welded together. It was the giant slingshot mounted on the front. The thing looked exactly like the playground equipment he used to play on as a kid, only 1,000 times bigger. What do you think they will shoot with that thing? Jake asked. Lisa shrugged. Knowing humans, probably something completely unexpected. The ship slowly turned in space, and Jake could see more details. The hull was covered in what looked like camping tents, bicycle parts, and kitchen appliances. There were garden hoses wrapped around some sections. Solar panels from houses were stuck in random places. The whole thing looked like it had been built by someone who had never seen a real spaceship before. The Nexus Coalition thinks we have gone crazy, Lisa said quietly. Their generals are sending reports back home about how humans have finally lost their minds. Jake smiled. Maybe that is exactly what we want them to think. The Nexus Coalition had been winning the war for months. Their ships were faster, stronger, and had better weapons. Every time human forces tried to fight them the normal way, they lost. The aliens had technology that was hundreds of years ahead of anything humans could build. Traditional military thinking was not working. That was when someone in the Defense Department had a crazy idea. If humans could not win by being better soldiers, maybe they could win by being better humans. The wild card was the result of that. Thinking. Jake watched as small workships flew around the wild card, making final preparations. The human workers looked tiny next to the massive vessel. The ship was almost a mile long, but it did not look threatening. It looked friendly, like a giant toy that someone had left floating in space. How many people know what this thing can? Really do? Jake asked. Maybe 50 people in the whole galaxy, Lisa replied. Everyone else thinks it is either a joke or a mistake. The main engines of the wild card began to glow. But instead of the usual blue or white light that most ships produced, these engines glowed in rainbow colors. They pulsed and changed like a disco ball. Even the engine exhaust looked playful. Tomorrow is the big test, Lisa said. Half the galaxy will be watching. If this works, it changes everything. If it fails, we become the biggest joke in galactic history. Jake finally stepped back from the window. What exactly does it do? I mean, I know it is supposed to be different, but how different? Lisa looked around to make sure no one else was listening. Remember when you were a kid and you built forts out of couch cushions? Remember how you could defeat your older brother, not by being stronger, but by being more creative? Yeah, this ship is like that, but with weapons that can destroy planets. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of weapons? The kind that make enemies stop fighting because they are too confused to continue, Lisa said. The kind that turn battles into something completely different. As they watched, the wild card slowly began to move away from the construction platform. Its movement was strange, too. Instead of the smooth, controlled flight of a military vessel, it seemed to bounce and spin through space like a ball. Occasionally, small bursts of colorful light shot out from different parts of the ship. Is it supposed to move like that? Jake asked. According to the engineers, yes, Lisa replied. They say unpredictable movement is the best defense against targeting computers. The ship's communication system crackled to life. Captain Amy Phillips' voice came through the speakers. This is wildcard control to all observers. We are beginning our departure sequence. Please stand by for something completely different. Jake had met Captain Phillips once. She was not like other military officers. She wore bright colors under her uniform and kept a collection of rubber ducks on her desk. When asked why she wanted to command such a strange ship, she had said that normal ships were boring. The wildcard began to move faster, but its path through space looked random. It zigzagged between asteroids, did loops around communication satellites, and even seemed to play a game of tag with some of the smaller workships. The whole display looked more like a celebration than a military operation. The aliens watching this must think we have completely lost our minds, Jake said. Good, Lisa replied. Let them think that. Tomorrow, when this ship meets its first enemy, they will learn that crazy and stupid are not the same thing. The wildcard disappeared into the darkness of space, its rainbow engines leaving a trail of glittering light. Jake and Lisa stood in silence for a moment, watching the strange spectacle fade into the distance. Do you really think it will work? Jake asked. Lisa smiled for the first time that day. Jake, I have been in the military for 20 years. I have seen every kind of weapon and every kind of ship, but I have never seen anything like this. And if I cannot predict what it will do, then neither can our enemies. The next morning, the wildcard would begin its first mission. The galaxy would watch as humanity unleashed its weirdest warship yet, and nothing would ever be the same again. Amy Phillips walked through the corridors of the wildcard and tried not to laugh. The hallways of her ship looked like someone had robbed a hardware store and decided to decorate a spaceship with the stolen goods. Kitchen mixers were built into the walls next to serious-looking computer screens. Garden hoses ran along the ceiling between important-looking cables. Exercise bikes were connected to power generators that helped run the ship's systems. Her crew loved it. These were not normal military people. Amy had picked each person herself, and she had not chosen them for their ability to follow orders. She had chosen them for their ability to think differently. Captain, we are ready for departure, called Bobby Watson from the bridge. He was sitting at what used to be called the weapons control station, but now looked like the control panel for a game show. Colorful buttons and switches covered every surface, and small lights blinked in patterns that seemed to dance. Amy smiled as she entered the bridge. Her command chair was actually a recliner from someone's living room, complete with a cup holder and a place to put her feet up. The main viewing screen was surrounded by what looked like Christmas lights, and the whole room felt more like a family den than a military command center. Status report, Amy said, settling into her comfortable chair. All systems are working perfectly, Bobby replied. The Rube Goldberg drive is running smooth, and our special weapons are loaded and ready. Oh, and the coffee maker is connected to the navigation system like you asked. Chief Engineer Lucy Patterson's voice came through the intercom from the house. Engine room. Captain, everything down here is ready to go. I have got the dishwasher helping to cool the main engines, and the laundry machines are generating extra power for the shields. We are ready to wash our way to victory. Amy had to admire Lucy's creativity. The woman could look at any household appliance and figure out how to make it help run a spaceship. Last week, she had connected a vacuum cleaner to the air filtration system and somehow made it work better than the original design. Communications? Are we ready to broadcast? Amy asked. Danny Harris nodded from his station, which was surrounded by old radio equipment, television antennas, and what looked like a karaoke machine. Ready to send our message to the galaxy, Captain. The speakers are loaded with every song ever recorded by humans, and the visual display system is set to maximum sparkle. Amy stood up and smoothed down her uniform. Over her regular military clothes, she wore a bright yellow apron that said, "World's Best Cook," in rainbow letters. It was not standard military dress, but nothing about the wild card was standard. "Attention, all crew," she announced over the ship's intercom. "This is your captain speaking. Today, we begin our first mission. We are going to show the galaxy something they have never seen before. We are going to prove that humans do not need the biggest guns or the fastest ships to win. We just need to be ourselves." The departure from Earth's orbital shipyards was unlike anything the watching aliens had ever seen. Most military ships left port in straight lines, following precise patterns that had been used for thousands of years. The wild card left port like a rubber ball bouncing down a flight of stairs. Ships spun, twisted, and tumbled through space in ways that made no sense. Occasionally, it would fire what appeared to be party streamers and confetti into the vacuum. Small fireworks exploded around the hull in bright colors. The entire display looked more like a birthday party than a military operation. "Captain," Bobby called out, "we are getting communications from the alien observers. They want to know if we need help." Amy laughed. "Tell them we are fine. Tell them this is how humans always fly." The Nexus Coalition had sent a small fleet to watch the wild card's departure. Their ships hung in space like dark, threatening shapes, all angles and weapon ports. They looked like they had been designed by someone who had never heard of fun. Compared to the wild card's cheerful chaos, they seemed almost sad. "What do you think they are thinking right now?" Danny asked, watching the alien ships on his screen. "They are probably wondering if we are dangerous or just crazy," Amy replied. "Let them wonder. Confusion is our best weapon." The wild cards. Course took it on a winding path through the solar system. Instead of heading directly toward its destination, it seemed to be taking a sightseeing tour. The ship slowed down near Mars to apparently take pictures. It did a loop around one of Jupiter's moons for no obvious reason. It even stopped to investigate an asteroid that looked vaguely like a famous actor. "This is the most fun I have ever had on a military ship," Bobby said, watching their strange journey unfold. "That is the point," Amy replied. "If we are having fun, then we are doing something right. And if our enemies cannot understand why we are having fun, then they cannot predict what we will do next." The ship's mess hall had been converted into a combination restaurant, workshop, and laboratory. Crew members worked on new weapons while eating lunch. They modified equipment while playing card games. They tested new systems while having dance parties. "Captain," Lucy's voice came through the intercom again. "I have finished installing the new defensive system. If anyone tries to scan us, their computers will get confused and start playing elevator music." "Excellent work, Lucy," Amy replied. "What about the offensive modifications?" "The kitchen equipment is now fully weaponized. We can launch pancakes at near-light speed, and the microwave can be used as a particle beam weapon. Oh, and I figured out how to make the dishwasher generate an electromagnetic pulse that will disable enemy electronics." Amy nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what she had hoped for. Her crew was not just following orders. They were creating new possibilities. They were taking ordinary things and turning them into extraordinary weapons. "Captain," Danny called out, "we are approaching the edge of the solar system. The real test is about to begin." Amy looked at the main screen, where stars stretched out into the darkness of deep space. Somewhere out there, the Nexus Coalition was waiting with their advanced technology and their superior firepower. They had been winning the war because they were better at traditional fighting. But the wild card was not traditional. It was something completely new. It was a ship that ran on creativity instead of fear, on imagination instead of destruction. It was the most human thing ever built. "Set course for the Kepler system," Amy ordered. "And Bobby, start playing our theme song." The bridge filled with music as the wild card accelerated into hyperspace. But instead of the usual military march, the ship's speakers played a cheerful tune that sounded like it belonged in a children's cartoon. The lights on the bridge began to pulse in time with the music. "This is either going to be the greatest victory in human history," Amy said, settling back into her recliner, "or the most entertaining defeat. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans decided to fight a war their own way." The wild card tumbled out of hyperspace like a drunk circus performer falling off a tightrope. Warning lights flashed all over the bridge, but instead of the usual red danger signals, they blinked in cheerful colors that made everything look like a disco party. "Captain, we have company," Bobby Watson announced from his game show control panel. "4 Nexus Coalition ships, and they look really unhappy." Amy Phillips looked at the main screen and saw the enemy fleet. 3 heavy cruisers and 1 battleship, hung in space like dark metal sharks. Their hulls were covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Everything about them screamed danger and death. "They are trying to communicate with us," Danny Harris called out from his karaoke station. "Put them on screen," Amy ordered, adjusting her bright yellow apron. The main screen flickered, and the face of General Vex Thran appeared. He was a Nexus Coalition officer with gray skin and 4 yellow eyes that showed no emotion. His uniform was black and covered in medals that proved how many battles he had won. "Humans," the alien general said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal, "we have been watching your pathetic vessel. We are impressed by your commitment to making yourselves look foolish. Please surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Amy smiled and waved at the screen like she was greeting an old friend. "Hello, General. I am Captain Amy Phillips of the USS Wildcard. We are on our way to deliver some very important supplies to the Kepler colonies. I am afraid we cannot surrender because we have promises to keep." General Vex Thran's 4 eyes narrowed. "You think this is a game, human? We have superior technology and superior firepower. Your ridiculous ship cannot stand against our weapons." "Well, that is probably true," Amy agreed cheerfully. "But we are not going to stand against your weapons. We are going to do something completely different." The alien general looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You will see," Amy said, and then she gestured to Danny to cut the communication. The Nexus fleet began to move into attack formation. Their ships spread out in a perfect pattern that had been used successfully for centuries. Each vessel took its assigned position with mathematical precision. Their weapons began to charge with deadly energy. "They are targeting our engines," Bobby reported. "Standard military procedure. They want to disable us first, then destroy us slowly." "Perfect," Amy said. "That is exactly what we want them to do. Bobby, load the first wave of our special ammunition." "Aye, Captain." Loading the rubber ducks. The Wildcard's main weapon was the giant slingshot mounted on the front of the ship. It looked like playground equipment, but it had been built by the best engineers in the human fleet. It could launch projectiles at incredible speed with perfect accuracy. "Captain," Lucy Patterson's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. "All household appliances are ready for combat. The vacuum cleaner is generating maximum suction power, and the blender is spinning at dangerous speeds." Amy nodded. "Excellent. Prepare to launch the first wave on my command." The Nexus ships fired their opening shots. Beams of pure energy lanced through space toward the Wildcard. The human ship should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The wild card's defenses were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Instead of energy shields or armor plating, the ship was protected by a series of mirrors, reflective surfaces, and what appeared to be disco balls. The enemy beams bounced off in random directions, creating a light show that turned the battle into a dance party. Now, Amy ordered. The giant slingshot fired its first volley. Thousands of rubber ducks shot out of the weapon at nearly the speed of light. They filled the space between the two fleets like a yellow cloud of chaos. General Vexthrin watched in amazement as his tactical screens filled with targets. "What are they shooting at us?" he demanded. "Sir, our sensors indicate they are Bath." "Toys," his weapons officer replied in a confused voice. The rubber ducks bounced harmlessly off the Nexus shields. The alien crews began to laugh. This was exactly what they had expected from the crazy humans. A completely useless attack that proved how desperate their enemies had become. But hidden among the rubber ducks were other objects. Kitchen utensils, tennis balls, and garden tools flew through space alongside the harmless toys. The aliens did not notice them because their computers were too busy tracking the thousands of ducks. Spatula struck the lead cruiser's shield generator. Instead of bouncing off like the ducks, it stuck to the surface and began to glow. Within seconds, the ship's shields flickered and died. "Sir, we have lost defensive screens," the cruiser's captain reported. "How is that possible?" General Vexthrin demanded. Before anyone could answer, more kitchen utensils found their targets. A whisk attached itself to the battleship's main weapon and began to spin. The massive cannon that could destroy planets suddenly started behaving like a kitchen appliance. Instead of firing destructive energy, it began to spray whipped cream into space. "This is impossible," the general said. "How are cooking tools destroying our weapons?" Amy Phillips appeared on his screen again, still smiling. "General, you are thinking like a soldier. We are thinking like cooks. And the first rule of cooking is that you can make anything work if you know how to use it properly." A tennis ball hit the communication array of one of the cruisers. Instead of causing damage, it began to broadcast human television shows at maximum volume. The ship's crew found themselves listening to a situation comedy about a family of talking dogs. "Turn it off," the captain screamed, but his technicians could not figure out how to stop the broadcast. Another tennis ball struck a different ship and activated its emergency lighting system. But instead of the usual warning lights, the entire vessel began to flash in time with disco music. The crew found themselves involuntarily dancing to the beat. "Captain," Bobby reported, "their formation is falling apart. 2 ships are spinning out of control, and the third one appears to be hosting a dance party." Amy nodded with satisfaction. Phase 2. Launch the garden tools. The slingshot fired again, this time sending rakes, shovels, and lawnmowers through space. Each tool had been modified by Lucy Patterson to do something unexpected when it hit an enemy ship. Rake struck the battleship's navigation computer and began to play classical music while simultaneously calculating the ship's position using poetry instead of mathematics. The massive vessel began to fly in patterns that spelled out haikus in space. "Sir," the battleship's navigator reported, "our course is now being determined by a 17-syllable poem about the beauty of spring. Flowers." General Vexthrin felt his 4 eyes beginning to twitch. "This is not warfare. This is madness." "Exactly," Amy replied cheerfully. "And the beautiful thing about madness is that it is completely unpredictable. Your computers cannot calculate. Crazy, General. Your tactics cannot defeat chaos." A lawn mower attached itself to the hull of the lead cruiser and began to cut geometric patterns in the ship's armor. The cuts were not deep enough to cause serious damage, but they spelled out the words "Have a nice day" in letters 20 feet tall. They are redecorating our ships, one of the alien captains reported in a voice filled with disbelief. I can see that, General Vexthrin snapped. How do we fight back against an enemy that attacks us with gardening equipment? The answer came from an unexpected source. One of his own crew members, a young technician who had been watching the battle, raised his hand tentatively. Sir, maybe we should ask them to teach us how they did that. This is the most interesting battle I have ever seen. General Vexthrin stared at his subordinate in shock. The human ship had not just defeated his fleet with kitchen utensils and garden tools. It had made his own crew curious about human tactics. Captain Phillips, he said slowly, what do you want? Amy smiled at the screen. World peace, an end to hunger, and a really good recipe for chocolate chip cookies. But for now, we just want safe passage to the Kepler colonies. We have supplies to deliver. The general looked at his fleet. One ship was playing music, another was dancing, and his own battleship was flying in poetry. His weapons were either disabled or converted into kitchen appliances. You have safe passage, he said quietly. But this is not over, human. We will find a way to defeat your madness. Good luck with that, Amy replied. But remember, General, the best way to defeat madness is to join it. You might actually have fun. The Nexus fleet watched in confused silence as the wild card tumbled away into hyperspace, leaving behind a trail of glitter and the faint sound of carnival music. News of the wild card's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every alien commander who heard the story refused to believe it at first. A human ship had defeated 4 Nexus Coalition vessels using kitchen utensils and garden tools. It sounded like the setup for a joke, not a military report. Admiral Zeekmorth was not laughing. He was the most decorated military officer in the Coalition, with victories spanning 3 different wars. His office walls were covered with medals, battle plans, and the surrender documents of defeated enemies. He had never lost a battle in 40 years of service. Show me the recordings again, he ordered his intelligence officer. The holographic display showed the battle from multiple angles. Rubber ducks bouncing off shields. Kitchen spatulas disabling weapon systems. Lawn mowers cutting friendly messages into ship hulls. No matter how many times Zeekmorth watched it, the battle made no sense. How many ships do we have available? He asked his staff. 50 of our finest vessels, sir, his aide replied. The entire Third Fleet is at your disposal. Good. We will hunt down this human ship and destroy it. I will not allow the Coalition to be humiliated by a vessel that looks like it was built from spare parts. Meanwhile, the wild card was drifting through space near a small asteroid field. Captain Amy Phillips had decided her crew needed a break to prepare for what was coming next. She knew the Coalition would not ignore their defeat. They would send everything they had to destroy the strange human ship. Captain, Lucy Patterson called from the engine room, I have finished the new modifications. The ship's mess hall is now a fully functional weapons laboratory. We can weaponize anything from breakfast cereal to musical instruments. Amy smiled as she walked through the corridors of her ship. The walls were now covered with new additions that her crew had installed during their brief rest. Exercise equipment was connected to the power systems. Musical instruments were built into the communication arrays. The ship's bowling alley had been converted into a missile guidance system. What about the new defensive systems? Amy asked. The garage sale gravitational manipulator is ready for testing, Lucy replied. It can make our ship appear to be in 5 different places at once. Also, the bake sale bombardment system is loaded with fresh cookies that can track enemy ships and deliver friendship messages. Amy had to admire her crew's creativity. They had turned warfare into an art form. Every weapon they created was designed not just to defeat enemies, but to confuse them so completely that fighting became impossible. "Captain," Bobby Watson called from the bridge, "we are detecting a large fleet approaching. 50 ships all, heavily armed and moving in perfect formation." Amy hurried to the bridge and looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was massive, covering several square miles of space. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, bristling with weapons and armor. They moved together like a single organism, coordinated by centuries of military tradition. "Danny, can you identify the lead ship?" Amy asked. "Yes, Captain. It is the Coalition flagship Dominator, commanded by Admiral Zekmorth himself. He is their most successful military commander." Amy settled into her recliner and put her feet up. "Well, that is flattering. They sent their best to deal with us. I hope we do not disappoint them." The Coalition fleet approached in a textbook. Formation. Ships spread out in layers, with the smallest vessels in front and the largest in the rear. Their weapons were charged and ready. Their shields were at maximum power. Every detail of their attack had been planned with mathematical precision. "They are hailing us," Danny reported. "Put them on screen," Amy ordered. Admiral Zekmorth appeared on the main display. He was an impressive figure, tall and commanding, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. His uniform was covered in medals that told the story of a lifetime spent in warfare. "Captain Phillips," he said in a voice that could cut steel, "I am Admiral Zekmorth of the Coalition Third Fleet. You have embarrassed my forces for the last time. Surrender now, and I will give you the honor of a warrior's death." Amy smiled and waved at the screen. "Hello, Admiral. I am so excited to meet you. I have heard wonderful things about your tactical abilities. This is going to be fun." The Admiral's face darkened. "You think this is a game? I have 50 ships under my command. Each one could destroy your pathetic vessel with a single shot." "Probably," Amy agreed cheerfully. "But Admiral, you are still thinking like a soldier. We are thinking like humans. And humans love a good challenge." She gestured to Bobby, who activated the ship's new sound system. Music began to play throughout the wildcard, but it was not military music. It was a happy, bouncy tune that sounded like it belonged in a children's playground. "What is that noise?" Admiral Zekmorth demanded. "Our battle theme," Amy explained. "We find that good music helps us work better. Would you like to hear our complete playlist? We have everything from death metal to lullabies." The Admiral cut the communication with a gesture of disgust. "All ships, attack formation Beta. Destroy that ridiculous vessel." The Coalition fleet moved forward like a tide of death. Their weapons began to charge with energy that could turn planets into dust. Their targeting computers locked onto the wildcard with perfect accuracy. It should have been the end of the strange human ship. Instead, something wonderful happened. The wildcard did not try to fight back in any traditional sense. Instead, it began to dance. The ship spun, twisted, and pirouetted through space in patterns that matched the music playing from its speakers. Its movements were so graceful and unexpected that the enemy targeting computers could not keep up. "Sir," the Coalition weapons officer reported, "we cannot maintain target lock. The enemy ship is moving in ways that defy our tactical programs." "How is that possible?" Admiral Zekmorth demanded. "It appears to be dancing, sir." The Admiral stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ship was indeed dancing through space, moving to the rhythm of its own music. Every time his weapons tried to lock onto it, the ship would spin away in a new direction. "Sir," another officer reported, "the enemy is launching something." The wildcard's giant slingshot fired, but instead of rubber ducks or kitchen utensils, it launched something even more unexpected. Thousands of musical instruments flew through space toward the Coalition fleet. Trumpets, drums, violins, and harmonicas filled the void between the two forces. What do we do about flying music equipment? The weapons officer asked. Shoot it down, the admiral ordered. The coalition ships opened fire on the musical instruments. Beams of energy lanced through space, destroying trumpets and exploding drums. For a moment, it looked like the alien fleet had successfully defended itself against another ridiculous human attack. Then the music started. Each instrument that was destroyed released a burst of pure sound into space. The sound waves spread out in all directions, creating a symphony of destruction that somehow managed to be both beautiful and terrifying. The coalition ships found themselves surrounded by music that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Sir, the communication officer reported, our systems are being affected by the sound waves. Some of our computers are beginning to keep time with the music. Admiral Ziekmorth felt a headache forming behind his eyes. What does that mean? It means our weapons are firing in rhythm, sir. Our shields are pulsing in time with the beat. Even our engines are synchronized to the music. The admiral looked at his tactical display and saw that his perfectly coordinated fleet was now moving in time with the human music. Ships that should have been maintaining formation were swaying back and forth like dancers at a concert. This is impossible, he said. Music cannot affect military equipment. Apparently it can, sir, his aide replied. The sound waves are creating resonance patterns that are interfering with our control systems. The wild card continued its dance through space, now surrounded by 50 coalition ships that were all moving to the same musical beat. The battle had become a performance, with the human ship as the conductor and the alien fleet as an unwilling orchestra. Captain Phillips, Admiral Ziekmorth said, opening communication again. What have you done to my fleet? Amy appeared on the screen, still smiling. We have given them rhythm, Admiral. Your ships have excellent timing. Have you ever considered a career in musical theater? The Admiral's left eye began to twitch. This is not warfare. This is chaos. The best kind, Amy replied. Admiral, you have spent your whole life learning how to fight wars. But humans have spent their whole existence learning how to party. And a really good party can defeat any army. As if to prove her point, the wild card launched its next attack. This time, the giant slingshot fired what appeared to be party decorations. Balloons, streamers, and confetti filled the space around the coalition fleet. When the aliens tried to destroy these harmless objects, they exploded into more music, and flashing lights dot within minutes. The most powerful military fleet in the galaxy had been turned into the universe's largest dance party. Ships spun and swayed to music they could not turn off. Weapons fired in rhythm with the beat. Even the Admiral's flagship was bobbing up and down like a boat on a musical ocean. Sir, his aide said quietly, perhaps we should consider a different approach to this problem. Admiral Ziekmorth looked at his fleet, listened to the music filling his comma. The final battle was set to take place in the most unlikely location imaginable. The ancient stellar nexus had once been a meeting place for the galaxy's greatest civilizations, but now it was just a collection of floating ruins and abandoned space stations. Admiral Ziekmorth had chosen it as the place where he would make his last stand against the impossible. Human ship. His fleet was battered and confused. After weeks of chasing the wild card through space, his ships had been turned into musical instruments, dance partners, and unwilling participants in the galaxy's strangest war. Half of his crew members had begun to enjoy the experience, which made the Admiral even more frustrated. Sir, his aide reported, the human ship is approaching. It appears to be broadcasting dinner invitations. Admiral Ziekmorth rubbed his temples. Dinner invitations? Yes, sir. They are inviting our entire fleet to join them for a meal. They have included detailed recipes and seating arrangements. The Admiral looked at his tactical display, where the wild card was slowly approaching through the ruins of the stellar nexus. The human ship had changed again during their long chase. Its hull was now covered with what appeared to be picnic tables, barbecue grills, and decorations that looked like they belonged at a family reunion. "This is their secret weapon?" he asked. "A dinner party?" Captain Amy Phillips appeared on the main screen, wearing a new apron that said, "Galaxy's Best Cook" in cheerful letters. Behind her, the bridge of the wild card had been transformed into something that looked like a kitchen on a cooking show. "Admiral Zickmorth," she said warmly. "I am so glad you could make it. We have been preparing a special meal just for you and your crews. I hope you like surprises." The Admiral stared at the screen in disbelief. "Captain Phillips, we are here to destroy you, not to eat dinner with you." "Why not do both?" Amy asked cheerfully. "We have plenty of food, and fighting always makes people hungry. Besides, it is much easier to talk about our differences over a nice meal." "This is madness," the Admiral said, but his voice lacked its usual strength. Weeks of chasing the wild card had worn him down. Nothing about this war made sense anymore. "Admiral," Amy continued, "you have been trying to defeat us using traditional military tactics. But humans do not follow traditional rules. We follow our hearts. And right now, our hearts are telling us to cook a really big dinner." The wild card's hull began to open like a flower blooming in space. But instead of revealing weapon bays or missile launchers, the ship showed dining halls filled with tables covered in white tablecloths. Small lights twinkled like stars, and the smell of cooking food somehow managed to drift through the vacuum of space. "How is that possible?" the Admiral's science officer asked. "We can smell their food in space. Lucy must have figured out how to make smell work in a vacuum," Amy explained helpfully. "She is very creative with the laws of physics." Admiral Zickmorth watched in amazement as his own crew members began to react to the smell of the human food. Aliens who had been preparing for battle were now looking hungry and curious. Some of them were actually drooling. "Sir, his communications," officer said quietly. "We are receiving personal dinner invitations addressed to each member of our crew. They know everyone's name and dietary preferences." "How could they possibly know that?" the Admiral demanded. Amy smiled at the screen. "We have been studying your fleet for weeks, Admiral. We know that Lieutenant Vex likes spicy food, that Captain Morton is allergic to shellfish, and that you personally enjoy desserts, but pretend not to because you think it makes you look weak." The Admiral's mouth fell open. "That is classified information." "Not anymore," Amy replied. "We also know that you have not had a home-cooked meal in over 10 years, and that you miss your grandmother's cooking more than you miss anything else in the galaxy." For the first time in decades, Admiral Zickmorth felt tears forming in his eyes. His grandmother had died when he was young, but he still remembered the smell of her kitchen and the taste of her special bread. "How do you know about my grandmother?" he whispered. "Because humans understand family," Amy said gently. "And we understand that even the greatest warrior in the galaxy needs someone to cook for him sometimes." The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Admiral Zickmorth was a military genius who had conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never faced an enemy who offered to feed him. The cognitive dissonance was so powerful that his tactical computers began to smoke and shut down. "Sir, his," Abe said carefully. "Perhaps we should accept their invitation, just to see what they are planning." "It is obviously a trap," the Admiral said, but his voice was uncertain. "What kind of trap involves cooking dinner?" his science officer asked. "What are they going to do? Defeat us with good manners?" The first coalition ship to dock with the wildcard was a small scout vessel whose crew had not eaten a decent meal in months. They approached the human ship cautiously, expecting to find weapons or soldiers waiting for them. Instead, they found a cheerful woman in an apron who handed them plates and showed them to a table decorated with flowers. Welcome to the galaxy's first intergalactic potluck dinner, Amy announced over the communication system. Please find your assigned seats and prepare to experience the power of human hospitality. Within an hour, the scout ship's crew was sending messages back to the fleet about the amazing food and friendly treatment they were receiving. The humans were not interrogating them or threatening them. They were asking about their families and sharing stories about Earth. Sir, the Admiral's communications officer reported, the crew of Scout 7 is requesting permission to bring dessert back to the fleet. They say the humans have something called chocolate cake that defies all known laws of deliciousness. Admiral Zeekmorth felt his resolve beginning to crumble. Are they being held prisoner? No, sir. They say they are free to leave at any time, but they do not want to leave until they get the recipe for something called mac and cheese. One by one, the ships of the Coalition fleet began to dock with the Wildcard. The human ship somehow had room for everyone, expanding and reshaping itself to accommodate thousands of alien visitors. The dining halls grew larger, the kitchens worked faster, and the supply of food seemed to be endless. This is impossible, Admiral Zekmorth said, watching his entire fleet abandon their battle stations to attend a dinner party. Where are they getting all this food? Captain Phillips says they replicated the favorite dishes of every crew members. Home planet, his aide reported. They somehow have access to recipes from across the galaxy. The Admiral finally gave in to curiosity and docked his flagship with the Wildcard. He expected to find chaos or some elaborate human trick. Instead, he found the most peaceful scene he had witnessed in 40 years of warfare. Aliens from dozens of different species were sitting together at long tables, sharing food and stories. Coalition soldiers were laughing with human crew members. Enemy officers were trading recipes with their opponents. The entire gathering felt more like a family reunion than a military encounter. Amy Phillips approached the Admiral personally, carrying a plate of food that smelled exactly like his grandmother's. Cooking. Admiral, she said, offering him the plate, I made this especially for you. It is your grandmother's recipe for honey bread. I hope I got it right. Zekmorth took a bite of the bread and felt 50 years of military discipline melt away. It tasted exactly like his childhood, like safety and love and home. How? He asked, his voice breaking. Because that is what humans do, Amy replied. We take care of each other. We share our food and our stories and our hope for a better future. And we never, ever give up on the idea that even enemies can become friends. The Admiral looked around. At his fleet, at his crew members, who were smiling and laughing for the first time in years. You have defeated us without firing a shot. We have not defeated anyone, Amy corrected gently. We have just reminded everyone that there is more to life than fighting. The war is over, Admiral, but only because we have all decided to choose something better. The Great Galactic Potluck lasted for 3 days and became the most important diplomatic event in galactic history. By the time it ended, the Nexus Coalition had signed a peace treaty with humanity. More importantly, they had learned that the most powerful weapon in the universe was not a gun or a bomb, but the simple act of sharing a meal with someone who cared. The Wildcard became the template for a new kind of diplomacy. Other human ships began to incorporate kitchens, game rooms, and art studios into their designs. The galaxy discovered that humans did not win wars by being better soldiers, but by being better friends. Admiral Zeekmorth retired from the military and opened a restaurant near the stellar nexus, where he served his grandmother's honey bread to visitors from across the galaxy. Captain Amy Phillips continued to command the Wildcard, but instead of fighting wars, she traveled from system to system, hosting dinner parties and teaching aliens how to cook dot. And in the ship's engine room, Chief Engineer Lucy Patterson was already working on her next project, a warp drive powered entirely by the collective good feelings generated when people shared their favorite recipes. The galaxy had watched as humanity unleashed its weirdest warship yet. In the end, they discovered that the strangest thing about humans was not their technology or their tactics, but their unshake